The Eagles just canceled their 5th top 30 draft visit, leaving many to wonder if the Birds are playing chess because other teams are trying to steal their picks. Plus, we have a brand new update on DeVonta Smith's contract extension, as well as one trade target seemingly off the board. Fletcher Cox, he says goodbye to Philadelphia and reveals the one thing he wants all of us to remember about him. The Birds' Week 1 opponent in Brazil is set. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. All right, it's official. Philadelphia's opening opponent for the Friday, September 6th game in Sao Paulo, Brazil was announced this morning, and it's the Green Bay Packers in Jordan Love will be the away team for Philadelphia as they kick off the 2024 season. Now, the Browns and Steelers were both popular names floated by a lot of reporters as being a potential opponent for the opener, but now you have potentially the 2 best teams in the NFC and the 2 best young quarterbacks in the NFC squaring off on Peacock in South America, which, by the way, is the first time the Eagles have played the Packers in Week 1 since 2010 when Kevin Cobb, rocking the old Kelly Green jerseys, started a game that Michael Vick would end up finishing, and the rest was history. Now, it's a great matchup, and I'm pumped for it, but the fact it's in Brazil, and again, being an Eagles home game, is a bummer. You would want the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love, who are potentially going to be a major threat in the NFC, to have to come to Philadelphia to the link in that Eagle home field advantage instead of what could be a neutral site in Brazil. Either way, I'm pumped. Are you going to the game? Let me know if you are down below right now. And if the big news that dropped this morning was that Jaguars have reached a 5-year contract extension with star pass rusher Josh Allen, paying him over $88 million in guaranteed money. And you remember last week that when Allen seemingly was frustrated, venting the fact he had no brand new deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Eagles might position themselves in a potential draft night trade and swoop up the pass rusher to replace Hassan Reddick. However, Josh Allen now staying in Jacksonville, I think is a good look for Howie Roseman, who might have made an even smarter decision than we realized with not giving Hassan Reddick similar money. I mean, think about it. You could have given Reddick what could have been close to $88 million, Josh Allen-type money, and instead, you have Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, and Zach Bond under contract in 2024 for just $16,752,547. And no, I'm not saying that any one of those pass rushers is better than Josh Allen or better than Hassan Reddick, but all 4 of them for pennies on the dollar compared to what Allen just got and what Reddick will likely get from the Jets, I think continues to show that not giving Reddick a massive extension was the right move long term. And that's even with NFL insiders like Brian Baldinger seemingly very surprised by the fact the Eagles let go of Hassan Reddick.
Well, I mean, if it's about money, it doesn't make any sense because they just gave Bryce Huff, who's been a part-time player, and I like Bryce. I nicknamed him the Bugatti last year. He looked like an Italian sports car coming off the edge. He loved it. But, you know, he's played less than 50% of the snaps. He started 3 games. He hasn't been an every-down player the way Hassan has. And so, Hassan, look, he started the season last year, I think, with a broken thumb, had a big old cast on his hand. Nobody's getting sacks when you're a one-handed bandit out there. So when he got healthy, he had a stretch where he had 11 sacks in 10 games as a full-time player, and he was turning it on. And then the whole team just fizzled down the stretch. But Hassan's a better player. Now, Bryce Huff can be. I've always thought Bryce should play more than what he did in New York. He's bigger than Hassan. He's got a great takeoff. Maybe they'll get more out of him and get more snaps out of him now that they paid him a big signing bonus and big money. See if they can get more out of him as a player, and that means playing the run and knowing situations and doing a lot more than coming on the field when it's 3rd and 12. And everybody knows you're rushing the passer.
Now, the Allen deal is a lesson in getting contracts done early. Like, the Jets will now have to pay Reddick probably even more, if not similar to what Allen got, which is why Howie Roseman and company need to get a deal done with DeVonta Smith a lot sooner rather than later to avoid paying over what CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson could get when they reset the market. And for those wondering, we did get an update today on the DeVonta Smith contract extension with ESPN Eagles insider Tim McManus reporting the Eagles are working hard to sign DeVonta Smith to a contract extension, and there's optimism a deal can get done in the near future. The sooner a deal is done, the better, and it's good news that the contract is actually being negotiated as we currently sit here. There were people asking, well, you could just give him the 5th-year option, which is due this year, May 2nd, and just wait to pay him a little bit later on. Maybe they don't want to extend him, but it's very, very clear from this report and others that we've seen is that they are actively working to get a deal done, and my expectation is it will come probably before the draft, the next couple of weeks, but that May 2nd extension deadline is probably the hard stop. Now, when we talk about the draft, I've talked a lot about all these different players coming in the NovaCare complex for their top 30 visits with the Birds. And the Eagles, for instance, had another one yesterday when Florida State's absolutely massive, and I mean massive wide receiver Johnny Wilson came to visit Howie Roseman and company following his 41-catch, 2-touchdown 2023 campaign. But his reported 6'6", maybe even 6'7" foot frame, and his ability to go up and make those contested catches make him a very interesting day 2, probably day 3 target for the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, they have 9 draft picks, and so if you wanted to add a couple of wide receivers, maybe one with a draft pick, a couple of others in, the undrafted free agent list, Wilson makes a ton of sense because the wide receiver 3, 4, and even 5 spot are very much wide open. The bigger story, however, is the fact the Eagles have canceled yet another top 30 draft visit when Boston College's Christian Mahogany no longer coming to Philadelphia, according to Jake Rabati. Now, canceling draft visits isn't super rare, but canceling a bunch of them is really, really surprising. As, of course, Pro Football Network's Anthony DeVonta pointed out yesterday, this is now the 6th reported 30 visit that have been some type of cancellation issue with the Eagles. I honestly believe that the team caught wind of how the reported 30 visits were giving away who they actually liked, and now they're trying to cover their tracks. Which Anthony went into a lot more detail with this tweet he tweeted out yesterday, saying, in the 2023 NFL Draft, 4 of the Philadelphia Eagles' first 5 selections were players they hosted on top 30 visits. Prior to the 2023 draft, 25 of their visits were reported and accounted for. Now this year, there's only been 21 total visits of 30 reported, yet 6 of them have either been canceled or disputed by different reporters. In my years of tracking these 30 visits, it's rare to see even one visit canceled or disputed at all. The fact that 6 have been questionable this year is very, very odd. Seems to me Philadelphia thinks teams are watching their top 30 visits closely in order to potentially poach prospects away from the Birds. And that sounds kind of conspiracy theory. No one's going to poach prospects. No one really cares who visits the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, this tweet by Anthony at Pro Football Network is a little bit more interesting when he says, I wasn't going to openly discuss it, but I received a notification that my Twitter account was added to a list called Eagles Top 30 Visits. And sure enough, the list was created by someone in the scouting department for the Detroit Lions. Think about it. The NFL Draft is one of the most important days of the year for any single NFL franchise. You're basically trying to find a needle in a haystack of all these different players who could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in total revenue and actual contract prices to your football team. And while Philadelphia doesn't have, I'd say, the best draft record, most NFL teams don't, they still are very much considered one of the gold standard front offices when it comes to free agency, contracts, and yes, the NFL Draft. And so it would make sense that teams are starting to look towards what the Eagles have done in the past and go, they always take their top 30 visits. Let's make sure we circle in on who they're actually getting, the way we can maybe steal them away. Which is why the Eagles seemingly are trying to hide who they're visiting or dispute who comes to Philadelphia in order to maybe keep a leg up on what is very stiff competition. Now, perhaps one of the Eagles' best draft picks of my life, the last 2 decades, it was Fletcher Cox, who, yes, yesterday officially announced his retirement from the NFL with a press conference at the NovaCare complex where he thanked the city of Philadelphia, talked about his teammates, overall his amazing career, and emphasized the one thing he really wants to be remembered for.
Man, when people look back at my career, the biggest thing is I want them to look at the way that I played the game. The honest way I played the game, the way I went out, the way that, they looked at my leadership, even the younger guys. I still want those guys to call me for leadership advice, and that's what I want to be looked at as.
You talk about some of the young guys. Do you feel like that's part of your legacy too? Like what they do in their careers going forward? Oh,
absolutely. I think that's part of it because you got guys when I was young. Who led the way for me, guys like Trent Cole, Cullen Jenkins, and Darryl Tapp. Those guys kind of showed me the way of how to be a professional, how to be a pro, and how to go by approaching things in certain ways.
I think if Aaron Donald never existed, if Aaron Donald was never in the National Football League, Cox would easily be considered the best interior defensive lineman of his generation. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion, and played in 188 career games and had a staggering 70 sacks and 519 tackles for DT. The guy single-handedly dominated. During his prime, you could not double him enough, and teams would just try to hold on for dear life whenever he would bull rush up the middle. That Saints loss in 2018 in the postseason was seemingly because he got injured and the Saints were able to pass block a lot better. I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody that 5 years from now, you'll see Jason Kelce as a first ballot Hall of Famer, and the teammate he lined up against in practice every single day in Fletcher Cox will probably be getting a gold jacket as well. And we got plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks, including our Wednesday Link Live tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Myself, Josh Davis, will break this all down and talk about everything happening in the world of Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been The Thomas Mott Show.